When God blesses others. I have this devotion book. I actually have a few of them. One of them is I just kind of read over and over. It's not date specific for how many days of the year. The other one is date specific for every day of the year, and it has a little devotion, just a little 1-2 minute devotion on it. I've got a lot of great sermon ideas because of being blessed with that devotion book. And I've got many more spots marked in that book that I'm going to use some of them topics. But it's entitled, When God Blesses Others. I'd like to start out with talking about elk hunting in South Dakota. It'll all tie together. In South Dakota, there's a very limited number of elk tags available because we only have so many elk, and you're only allowed to harvest so many of them to continue to keep the population in a balance that the land that they live on, can provide for them. So it's a tag that you start applying for when you're really young, and then maybe when you get, in your 30s-ish, maybe you'll draw. I know the last time I drew a tag, I think it was after 10 years of applying. That was about 5 years ago. And it was my archery elk tag in the hills. And the reason everyone wants a tag is because it's like probably the most exciting, funnest hunt, the most beautiful land in South Dakota you get to go out in. The weather that time of year is just beautiful. It's crisp in the morning. The afternoons are still really warm yet. You get to hear the elk bugling during the rut. It's the only time of the year the elk will bugle, generally anyway, is like in September and really early in October. And just to hear that sound out in the hills, the way it echoes through the canyons and the valleys, it's just an amazing experience. I mean, it's something else. But anyways, I drew that tag about 5 years ago. Well, after you draw that tag, you can't even reapply again for 9 years. And then, so 9 years later, you can start to apply again. And now the point creep has gotten so bad that usually it takes you anywhere from 15 to 25 years before you'll draw a tag of applying. So that archery tag, another 5 years, and then I'm not even going to start reapplying for it because by the time I would draw it, I would be way too old to even, wander through the hills. It's unfortunate, and just to give you an idea, I do have preference points for prairie elk so far, 20 years. I've been applying for 20 and still haven't drawn the tag. And I've got points for Custer State Park. I think I'm up to 27 or something like that and never drawn. Might never ever draw the tag. But there is a preference for landowners out in the hills. If you're a landowner that owns at least 240 acres of land that has at least 500 days of elk use, which means 500 elk had to walk through your field during the course of a year. I'm not sure how they figure it out, but they they'll send somebody out and they'll try to figure out, how much elk use has been there. But if they do have both of those, the 240 and the elk use, then a landowner can apply for a tag, just one for his property, but every year. Even when they draw one, then they can apply the next year, and they can apply the next year. And not always, but many of the landowners that draw those tags, they don't even shoot the elk on their own property. They're still out in the Forest Service, wherever the elk are at, where they're hunting, which to me doesn't seem fair. I'm kind of jealous that they're able to do that every year. They can experience that experience every year. Although, if I experience it every year, it probably wouldn't be as special when it does happen. But God condemns coveting. Of course, in the 10th commandment, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's house, wife, servants, ox, donkeys, or anything that is your neighbor's. And what can happen if you do? Well, it can lead to murder. It can lead to adultery. It can lead to stealing, doesn't it? Jealousy is an abomination in the life of a Christian. It causes us to do all sorts of sinful things that we wouldn't have done. You know, God made his children. None of us deserve to be God's child. So there's no need to compare what our blessings are with the blessings of someone else. Jealousy is self-centeredness at its worst. It robs us of joy and chokes out contentment. It hardens the heart, and it assumes that God's resources are to be limited to bless others while blessing us, which his resources are unlimited. Well, the story in this message today is going to be about King Saul. Saul was the first king of Israel. He reigned somewhere between 1020 and 1000 BC. He probably became king at about 30 years old. He was from the tribe of Benjamin, and he probably became the king because when he rescued Jabesh Gilead from the Ammonites. Well, along came David, a young boy who defeated the Philistine giant. Everyone pretty much knows the story about David. And he had a sling, and he put a stone in that sling, slung it around, hit the giant right in the forehead, knocked him out. But anyway, shortly after David got rid of Goliath, he moved in with Saul and with his son Jonathan. And David and Jonathan became just like brothers. Jonathan loved him like a brother. Well, Saul sent David to battle for him. And whenever David went to battle, he was winning because he had God with him. And then we come to the verse that was read, 1 Samuel 18:7. So the women sang as they danced and said, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s. That was the start of Saul's jealousy over David. At that point, he started to wonder and worry if Saul was going to steal his kingdom from him. Can you imagine being the starting quarterback for an NFL team, and you take this young rookie underneath your wing, and you teach him all the ropes? Here you are, you're the leader of the team, you're the star quarterback, you're the $1 million salary guy, you're the guy that they make jerseys for, you're the guy that has all the endorsements. And then all of a sudden, your backup comes in and steals your job from you. So then you lose your big salary. No longer are you a big leader in your offense. You lose your endorsements, your fans, the ones that used to root for you because you're not playing anymore. That's kind of a hard pill to swallow, isn't it? That's what Saul was feeling. You know, this last week, just so happened I watched the Kurt Warner story. I'm sure some of you probably have seen it before. But anyways, he was actually, when he got back into the NFL, or finally into the NFL at a late age, I think he was in his late 20s or close to 30. But he was playing arena ball, and he was doing so well that they wanted to take a look at him. Anyway, he got to go to the Rams and try out with the Rams. Well, the Rams ended up keeping him as a backup. Trent Green at the time was the quarterback for the Rams, who was their star, I guess you could say, and he was a really good quarterback. Well, he went down during a preseason game, which allowed Kurt to step up, and they ended up keeping Kurt Warner as the starting quarterback for their team that year. Well, Trent Green was out, and the starting quarterback for years after that, too. And the rest was history because he did great. All of a sudden, all the hype was on Trent Green. And then all of a sudden, Trent Green, he went to another team, I think, and maybe another team, and just kind of disappeared. So you can imagine how Trent felt too. So anyways, Saul grew so preoccupied with his jealousy toward David that he neglected all the important things that he needed to care about, which brought suffering and pain to his people, and his family was destroyed because of his jealousy. He was so wrapped up in his jealousy. Well, 1 Samuel 18:12 says, "Now Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him, but had departed from Saul." So because of Saul's jealousy, the Lord departed from him. I want to read a commentary from a servant of the Lord out of Patriots and Prophets on the verses above. It says, "The demon of jealousy entered the heart of the king. He was angry because David was exalted above himself in the song of the women of Israel. Everything was marked by his desire for praise and self-exaltation. His standard of right and wrong was the low standard of popular applause. No man is safe who lives that he may please men and does not seek first for the approbation of God. It was the ambition of Saul to be the first in the estimation of men, and when this song of praise was sung, a settled conviction entered the mind of the king that David would obtain the hearts of the people and reign instead of him." So Saul was wrapped up in his jealousy, and his only focus was on his jealousy and on David, because he was worried that he was going to steal his kingdom, when he should have been focusing on his job at hand, ruling the kingdom and the other matters. So what happens if you're batting? Anyone play baseball here before? Swing a bat at a ball? No one has? I have. Oh, there's a couple people have. Or think about it one time, everyone has. So the pitcher pitches the ball. You take your eye off the ball. What happens? Nothing. Yeah, you shook your head. Nothing. You swing the bat and you miss the ball. I mean, unless you're just really lucky and you hit it, it'll probably be a foul anyway. So you miss it. If you take your eye off the ball, you miss it. You strike out, you lose. You can be the best hitter in the league, but if you don't keep your eye on the ball, you're going to lose focus and you're going to miss it. And then here was David came along, hitting home runs and triples and doubles. Well, Saul didn't have his eye on the ball. Jealousy was robbing Saul of his joy and his strength, and God wasn't with him anymore. Jealousy had taken him into a hopeless situation. It all started when he became jealous of David because of that song by them women. At that point, he became a prisoner of his jealousy. In boxing, a fighter can come in to heavyweight champion and everyone will think this guy is it. He's never going to lose a fight. I kind of remember Mike Tyson when he first came onto the scene, and this young guy, he'll be the champion for 20 years. Well, of course, those of you that have ever heard or followed any boxing, it's not. Because eventually someone stronger, someone faster, and probably someone younger is going to come up. So you got Ali, Frazier, Foreman, Holmes, Holyfield, all in the past. Someone moved up. As Saul's story continues, he decided to have his daughter marry David, hoping maybe that would change things. But when he did that, the people liked David even more and even more, until finally Saul sent someone to kill David. But his daughter told him, so he fled. After that, it was Saul's only mission in life was to find David and kill him. all because of jealousy. Along the way, David had some opportunities to kill Saul too, but he didn't. Since God was no longer with Saul, the Philistines were able to overpower the men of Israel and chase Saul and his family down and killed his sons and wounded Saul severely. In the end, Saul took his own sword, fell down and killed himself. What a tragic end to life, to the life of Saul. All started because of jealousy of the one song. Jealousy that he was going to lose his starting spot. Jealousy that he was going to lose his game. Jealousy he was going to lose his boxing match. Jealousy over David. With that story, you can see how jealousy can take over a person's life. And it'll send you in a downhill spiral and take people with you that are close to you along with. We all need to watch over our hearts, don't we? If you're unable to rejoice over the success of someone else, beware. Don't let jealousy enter and taint your hearts like Saul did. Repent before it robs you of any more joy and contentment that God desires for you. And when you're tempted to compare yourself with the success of other people in your life, that's a good time to ask God to remind you of all the ways that He has blessed you over the years. Even though we're undeserving, He still blessed us over those years. May the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, keep your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus.